It has been a real pleasure, and we're looking forward to the future.
Thank you. Thank y'all very much.
All right, got a couple of minutes. Wayne, I'm gonna put this over here if it goes off the other additional slack.
What's that?
If it goes off. I would like to ask everyone if you would be kind enough to silence your telephones, if you would please. We're just checking ours up here. We are carried live on the internet and streaming, and so it's thank you for doing that. Okay, one last opportunity to sign up for public speaking. Half a dozen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to call to order the regular meeting of the Madison County Board of County Commissioners for June 13, 2017. Let us all rise to the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now have a moment of silence. Thank you. We will now look at the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as set.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Rice.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brigman. All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. The agenda is approved. We now have public comment.
No.
I'm sorry, excuse me, my bad. We now need to approve the minutes for May 9, May 18, and May 23. We will do them separately. In reviewing the minutes for May 9, are there any corrections?
Move that the minutes be approved as submitted.
Motion by Commissioner Wechtel to approve as submitted.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rice. All those in favor of approving the minutes of Tuesday, May 9, 2017, please raise your right hand. Now looking at the minutes for May 18, 2017. Any additions or corrections?
I move we approve the minutes for the May 18th.
Motion by Commissioner Brigman.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wechtel. All those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted for Thursday, May 18, 2017, please raise your right hand. Now looking at the minutes for May the 23rd, 2017. Are there any additions or corrections?
I move that they be approved as submitted.
Motion by Commissioner Wechtel to approve as submitted.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rice. All those in favor, let me know by raising your right hand. The minutes of May 23rd, 2017 are approved. And now, back to public comment. I need to remind everyone that this public comment is for the regular part of the meeting. We have 3 individuals who have signed up, and if any of the 3 of you have not or want to speak to the budget, I know at least one has already signed up for both, okay? I need to also remind that there is a 3-minute time limit on these, okay? And Mr. Forrest will be our monitor. All right, the first person signed up on the list is Pete Ortman. Pete?
Okay,
You just had to tempt me, didn't you? You just had to do it. I was at a meeting the other day that said you haven't been in our meetings. What's the matter? Well, I didn't plan it to be this way. But the order of the day. In the last few weeks, I've received 3 delinquent tax notices for vehicles. The first one is dated 2006. Now, I also have a copy of North Carolina General Statute 105-378, which says there's a statute of limitations of 10 years. I'm terrible at math, but I think if I subtract 6 from 17, it's 11. So I'm asking the county, or demanding, if that's the word that I have to use, that the county notify me by what rules are they sending tax bills that are 11 years or older. And if there is no such law, I wish to be notified of that as well. Second, I didn't own any of these vehicles for the years that I've been billed. So I also want to know, by what law are you billing people for property that they don't own? I'm sure that Mr. Laws will have these answers. I'd like them in writing. The county has my information, but I'll give it again so that we can be straight and understand why you're sending bills for property that people don't own and bills that are 11 years old. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Erica Schneider. Ms. Schneider, if you make sure you speak into the mic, it really doesn't pick up well on the streaming unless you do.
Okay,
Okay.
certainly. How's that?
That should work.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I came as a resident of Madison County to speak in support of the proposed on-bill financing opportunity through French Broad BMC. For those in the community that know me, I am a former science educator, but have been actively involved in energy issues for over 20 years. When I taught in the high school years ago, was part of the energy savings contracting with Johnson Controls to some degree. And I believe that has turned out to be a successful energy saving opportunity for our community and school system. Anyway, I have become aware of the on-bill financing program that is being proposed by Appalachian Voices. A lot of work and research, is my understanding, has gone into presenting a viable program to enable our citizens, many of which are stressed economically, as we are well aware, living in housing that fails to meet energy code and is trapping them in long energy cycles of bills. With imminent rate hikes and health impacts and potential savings, I think this program offers a lot of opportunities to create some creative financing programs through in cooperation with French Broad that can impact the economy of this county, especially those that need it most. Through energy savings, overall better for our environment, again, health and economy. So thank you for that opportunity to support those
Thank you, Ms. Schneider.
thoughts.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elaine Robbins.
Hi, I'd like to pile on to Ms. Schneider's support for the on-bill financing. I come from a different background. I have nothing but college and high school science. But I did work for a couple of years here in Madison County as a guardian ad litem for abuse and neglected kids. And one thing that was really apparent to me is we have a lot of folks who are just scraping by, And they have a very limited cash budget each month. And of course, electricity is one of the things that you have to pay for in cash. They don't take chickens, they don't take services, you gotta pay up in cash. So I think something where we can help our least economically gifted to get a lower cost for more efficient electricity would be a great thing. And I come from the prospect that that'll help those families put more money towards food and education and clothing for their kids. So I support it and I hope you will as well.
Thank you, Ms. Robbins. That covers the individuals who signed up for the general public comment. The next item on the agenda, Mr. Forrest.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm going to be up here a lot tonight, but this is going to be the best part of it. I want to introduce Jason Walls from Duke Energy, who has some good news about a funding opportunity for some good news for our library. So, Jason.
Commissioners, good evening.
Good evening.
Real quick, my name is Jason Walls, and I'm the district manager serving as the local government community relations manager for Duke Energy. I haven't had the opportunity to really be before you in a formal way since I've taken this role a few years ago, but I cover Haywood, Buncombe, Madison, Yancey, Mitchell, and Avery counties. I routinely tell people that I have all the snow in the state of North Carolina combined in one small geographic area, which makes winters a little interesting for me. But I welcome the opportunity to be here with you tonight to really celebrate kind of a conversation that has happened over really the last year. And with that, I want to get right to the matter and the business at hand. But I'm going to use a few words to start my remarks, and they're going to be very, very brief, I promise. But I'm going to use the words tenacious, determined, creative, persistent, and just downright lovely. And with that, I think a lot of people probably know I'm talking about. My friend Melanie Morgan, I'm going to ask her to come up here for just a minute while I talk a little bit about why I'm here tonight. So it was probably about a year ago, and Melanie and Ryan Cody kept calling, and I was trying to avoid them at all costs because I didn't ask for. And so I wasn't returning phone calls, but they just wouldn't take a hint. And so I finally decided to drive up to and meet Melanie for the first time. And of course, I went to Hot Springs because that's where I've spent the majority of my time, because that's where our customers are really in this fair county. And she wasn't there. She stood me up in her office where we had arranged the meeting. And so I very quickly jumped in the car. I went to where we were supposed to be. And I go to a lot of meetings where people are asking for money. And I routinely have to say no. But this one was different. What Melanie kind of described and what the work that was happening in Hot Springs to create a real hub of service in a community, a really purposeful place in Hot Springs for people to gather for other types of projects that are happening around that community, use the facility for STEM-related, technology-related education. It was really impactful. And it was one of the first times that I found something that I really wanted to support. And I think that it was just wonderful that we were able to come up with something after many, many conversations later and several more phone calls that were likely not returned in a timely manner. But with all of that delay, right, I'm very happy to present Melanie with a $40,000 check for the Madison. Share this, and we're so excited about the programming and what you're going to be able to unlock with the support of this gift. And know that we're going to be routine visitors when we're in town, and we need a place to stop in and hang out for a little while. So this isn't the real check. She already has the real
I have
check.
the real
But this is the real big check.
Well, as you can guess, we are completely excited to accept that. The funny thing is the checks came yesterday and I opened it up and there was one that said 10,000. I was like, what? And so underneath it was another check for 30,000. So we were very, we can't, I'm not able to actually describe how happy we are for this opportunity for the Hot Springs Library and the surrounding area. And, as you all know, our libraries are very important to our community and they do so much more than people realize, and the impact that they make in people's lives. We are a place where you can come and have technology, have internet access. We provide a broad spectrum of programming from STEM for our young ones all the way to adults and seniors. I left the Marshall Library today and there was about 30-some people doing yoga inside the library. So we are an amazing place and we are really looking forward to utilizing the Duke Energy Foundation grant money to make the Hot Springs Library a more fabulous place. And we're going to be doing that with STEM programming, providing access, and creating really cool hands-on learning centers within that library. So thank you so much. And thank you, Duke Energy and Jason, for putting up with me for over a year. See, being tenacious works out sometimes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would be remiss not to thank Melanie, her hardworking staff, the many friends of the library that we have in Madison County. And for any of you that are not up to speed on just how excellent a library system we have, I would really encourage you to find out. We truly have one of the finest library systems, public library systems in the state of North Carolina. And that has come due to the hard work of the community. And I want to again thank everyone involved, from the staff to Melanie and all the people in the community of Madison County that support the public library system. Thank you, folks. This is a good example of how working together we can get something done. So thank you very much, all of you. All right, at this time, I will open a public hearing regarding the proposed Madison County budget for the fiscal year 2017-2018. After a presentation from the county manager regarding the budget, there will be a period for public comment. We have two individuals who have signed up. Mr. Forrest.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commissioners, I'm pleased to present the proposed general fund budget for fiscal year, actually the proposed budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 for Madison County. This is $24,278,949 general fund budget that continues efforts to exercise fiscal prudence, maintaining the current property tax that has been in place since 2012, reallocating existing funds to cover critical priorities, and setting aside funds for future emergencies and major projects. The proposed budget continues to increase funding for education, increases library hours, and provides additional staff time to address wait times for permitting. Funds are included to cover increased health insurance expenses and a cost of living increase for employees. The budget's a realistic estimate of expected revenues and expenditures for the current year, with the lowest appropriation from fund balance, which is the county's savings account, and the highest appropriation to contingency, which is the amount we set aside for unexpected events every year since fiscal year 2012 2013. I'll refer you to the slides, if you have those, the PowerPoint printout, for just some general notes on the budget. An overview of how our budget is pieced together. We have several funds that piece together the entire Madison County budget. One is the general fund, which is a $24 million budget that consists of most county departments and most county expenses. That is funded from property taxes, sales taxes, usage fees, grant funding, intergovernmental revenues, all of which we'll get into momentarily. The landfill fund operates independently as an enterprise fund. That's a $2 million budget, approximately 2.1, just about. That is funded separately from those tax dollars. It is financed by the $160 disposal card, tipping fees on commercial haulers and construction demolition debris, as well as some smaller sources from grants and other fees and some state funding. That operates completely separately. If you save money at the landfill, it doesn't really help your general fund, and vice versa, though both are good, and the funds do combine to serve the county very well. But the only expenses covered from that are the services provided by the landfill. Then you have your 911 fund, which is $239,000. That's funded from telephone surcharges throughout the state. That covers addressing equipment, partial salaries for a couple of positions in 911, and then we cover the dispatch and other operational funds. Then you have the occupancy tax, tourism development fund, which is $265,000 funded from the occupancy tax on accommodations in the county. That's administered by the TDA board. It has to go toward promotion of tourism and actually getting increased overnight stays in the county. And then you have your fire district taxes, which countywide for all your fire districts total revenues and expenses of $1,334,000. That passes through the county as it's collected as part of the property tax in addition to the county tax rate. The county does not control how that money is spent or where it goes, but commissioners do have the authority to set that rate within specific limits for each fire district. So once that rate is set, that fire district, the department in that district gets that amount of money, and they set a budget based on that, and all have submitted budgets. You look at the next slide, general fund revenues by source shows just a little bit about where the money that funds the county comes from. Just under half the county's revenue is tied somehow to the property tax. Between current year's property taxes, prior year's taxes, and interest and late listing fees, motor vehicle taxes, that comes to about 47% total. We get about 14% from the sales tax. We get about 30% from intergovernmental revenues, which is any money we're getting from the state or federal government. That can be funds for foster care at DSS, Medicaid funds for the health department, housing of federal inmates at the jail. Other revenues would include a $40,000 check from Duke Energy and other things like that, where it's other grant sources that are coming not from a government entity. Could also include the sale of copies, sale of property, just all those miscellaneous items. And your other fees include your permitting fees, things like that. Your transfer from fund balances, the amount you're taking from your long-term savings to cover ideally one-time expenses, which is what we're doing. And then you have franchise taxes and other tax fees and interest. The next slide shows your general fund expenditures by function, which is how the county's money is spent. And that entire $24 million is spent, and this includes all those intergovernmental funds from the state and federal government. About 24% of those dollars go to social services, 22% to public safety, 14% to health and human services, 14% to education, which includes the Madison County Public Schools and AB Tech, 10% to general government, which includes your tax office, your finance office, your board of elections, all those various county departments that don't fall within the other categories. 3% goes to community services, the meal sites and senior center portion. Nearly 5% goes to debt service. A good portion of that, about $430,000, is actually going to school debt service for the qualified school construction bond. That's not counted under education for the purpose of this. It's counted under debt service. That's paid out of funds we'll get to later in the presentation. Culture and recreation, which includes parks and rec and the library, is about 5%. Transportation, our transportation authority, is about 3%. Economic and, that's 2.4%. Economic and physical development accounts for about 3%. That includes our economic development office, our county planning, the grants that go to community centers and nonprofits in the county. And then we have 0.2% this year going to capital outlay and 0.6% going to contingency to cover those unexpected items that come up throughout the year. The next slide shows, just for interest, where we actually spend our county money. When you take into account all of that state and federal money that comes in for services that are often mandated for us, particularly in social services, the health department, we took those dollars out and look at where your county tax dollars and your fee dollars are actually being spent. So when you do that, and you're just looking at your local money, public safety goes into first place at 27%. Social services, which is first place with all funding, goes into fourth place at 12%. Education goes into second place at 21%. 13% in general government, 7% in health and human services, 9% in debt service, 3% in culture and recreation, nearly 5% in economic and physical development, 3% in community services, 1.5% in transportation, and then 0.3% in contingency. And the final slide shows a historic look at our revenues and expenditures for the last several fiscal years. The budget that is adopted every year is a balanced budget where your revenues will equal your expenditures. And throughout the year, as conditions change, because your budget is an estimate at the beginning of the year, things change. Revenues come in above or below expectations, and so do expenses. At the end of the year, we always want to have an excess of revenues over our expenses. And for the most part, 4 out of the last 5 years, we've had that happen. There was an exception in fiscal year 14-15. That was a year that came in midway with a budget that had been adopted based on several recurring expense increases that hadn't been offset with reductions or any revenue sources, and also one that relied on some unpredictable revenue sources from back taxes. We really worked developing the 15-16 budget and the 16-17 budget to cut expenses, try to get that budget back where it needed to be, and you can see a slight surplus in 15-16, and what we're expecting to be a pretty good, very good surplus at the end of this year to do that. So we've had a good trend. One year where we dipped in a little bit. When your expenses exceed your revenues, you're dipping into your savings account, basically. If your revenues are exceeding your expenditures, you are able to put some of that back to cover other years. Some highlights on revenue and changes in revenues throughout the county. We have based our property tax collection rate on a 95.5% collection rate. That'll bring in about $9,945,000. That's about $272,000 over what was initially budgeted for the current year. We have seen a steady increase in the property tax collection rate since 2012. At that time, the collection rate was 90.5%. We were last in the state due to hard work by our tax office, our county attorney, and by you all for holding the line on taxes that are owed. That collection rate has increased to 95.5%. That means basically, I looked, if our collection rate this year were the 90.5% it had been in 2012, we would have $500,000 less in revenue. So that's the equivalent of 2.7 cents on the tax rate. You all have been able to leave the tax rate at 52 cents by having more people pay the taxes they owe. And that's enabled the county's revenues to grow without penalizing those who are paying their taxes at the expense of those, penalizing those who are paying their taxes and letting those who aren't off the hook. We still have progress to be made. The average for counties our size is 96.6%. We expect new tax software to move us up there, but that's really good progress. That's really had an impact, a positive impact on our budget. Looking at prior year's taxes, that 95.5% looks at only those taxes that are billed in August for tax year 2017. There are taxes before that, going back 10 years, that can be collected, and when people don't pay those, they accrue interest and late fees, and we have a number budgeted for each of those years. We're lowering our overall projection of that by $50,000 to $660,000. That's because we had over projected those revenues and when in the past. And when you think about how that works, it's very much one-time revenue. We have, unfortunately, some people who have owed a couple of $100,000 in taxes, or a combination of people who owe that much. Once they paid their bill, you can't go back and collect that the next year. You have a consistent amount you'll collect because you'll never be at 100% on your current year. But you don't want to rely on those one-time revenues coming in, which is what got us in trouble in 14-15. You don't want to rely on that and put an automatic hole in your budget. Vehicle tax collection is steady. That's around 99% because the Tag and Tax Together program the state runs, where people have to pay their vehicle taxes prior to getting their registration renewed. Sales tax revenues are expected to increase 11%. That's a big jump. It's not as big a jump as it sounds because those monies come in a few months after the July 1. So we still have April, May, and June taxes that June won't come till August. Those monies actually came in at a higher rate than expected last year and will this year as well. So we're seeing growth, but it's not quite 11% that will be there. Budget includes a $991,000 increase in intergovernmental revenues. That's a 16% increase. Major increases in that include $400,000 in social services related revenues. That includes state funds for administrative expenses such as salaries, foster care expenses, and adoption assistance. We also have $274,000 in additional health department revenues for Medicaid and federal grant funds, $118,000 in additional revenue from the housing of federal inmates. The amount appropriated from fund balance is $50,000. That's 70% lower than what was appropriated for the current year, and that revenue is directly tied to the one-time expense of purchasing voting equipment, which is exactly what you would use your savings for, those major types of purchases. But we're not using it to just balance our budget. We were a little short on salaries, so let's just pull from fund balance. That's not what we're doing. We are covering one-time expenses with that. Because of conservative estimation of revenues and expenses for the last 2 fiscal years, we had a $258,000 surplus at the end of last year, and we're expecting at least a $500,000 surplus at the end of this year, potentially more. So we have that in mind next year. You're estimating exactly how that works. You don't want to always have $1 million left over. You want exactly the right amount. So we're adjusting accordingly to make sure that works, but we still believe we're being very conservative on money that can be left over and set aside in the future. Some expense highlights, 7% increase overall in the size of the budget. Of the county dollars, that's about a 3% increase. Of the intergovernmental revenues, that's about 13%. So a big portion of that 7% jump is those intergovernmental revenues that cover services that aren't necessarily even optional or that aren't county funds that we're paying for. We made an effort to prioritize existing funds in order to cover more important things. We identified $390,000 in savings throughout the county. $132,000 of that was due to combined departmental reductions of combining positions, cutting on travel budgets, cutting office supplies, just really looking at how to save funds to be used for areas that were most important. $160,000 savings in workers' comp and property insurance. Change in the provision of janitorial services that will save $20,000. $48,000 in health insurance savings by increasing the deductible for the county and increasing the deductible for employees while maintaining the premium-free health insurance plan for employees. $30,000 in salaries and benefits by replacing the full-time position in inspections and zoning with some contract positions. Budget focuses on inflationary increases in existing services. When you're maintaining the existing tax rate and you're living with what you have, that basically means you have to be very careful about starting any new programs. And this budget very much focuses on taking care of what we're already doing. There are a few exceptions for increased demand. There's an additional $29,000 in environmental health to increase a inspector position from half-time to full-time. That will address backlog in well permitting and septic permits. Everybody who builds a house or is working on a business is slowed down when we have a vacancy there. The demand is up because the economy's been doing better and we just need to meet that demand. And extra revenues from those services actually offsets that increase. Some internal savings in the library budget that Melanie Morgan found have allowed for an additional 16.5-hour operating hours among all three branches of the library. The net increase to the county is only $1,700. So that's great work and a great example of prioritizing what she already had to improve services for the citizens. There's also funds included in the library budget to continue the literacy program and the high school equivalency GED program for jail inmates. That's to match grant funding that covers about half of that. And there are funds included for the Madison County Transportation Authority to pay for backup van drivers, so when someone's out, we don't have to slow down service. We can maintain those levels. Capital outlay, something we've not done in several years, but has been done in the past. We're allocating $50,000 to a capital reserve fund that will need to be set up via resolution and ordinance by you all at a later date. But this allows us to set aside some funds for long-term planning, looking 5 to 7 years on construction and major purchases we know the county will need to make. That if we look 7 years in the past, we can see the county made on other things. It's just routine for an organization this size. And this allows us to set aside a consistent amount of money using some savings we'll have when you get to that portion at a later time to actually set up several $100,000 that can be used to sort of plan over a 5 to 7 year period for some major renovations and expansions of county property. And $48,000 is allocated for ongoing building maintenance. We discussed contingency earlier. There's $161,000 appropriated to contingency. $61,000 approximately of that is for voting equipment. $100,000 of that is just to have in our budget for when something surprising arises throughout the year, which does happen. Throughout the year, as we spend less in departments, we'll do budget amendments to put more money into contingency because it's also an automatic sort of savings place for the county. We put it there, we know at the end of the year, unless you all decide to do otherwise, that it will be there and it will be part of the surplus. Looking at how the county spends on public schools with adding some money and looking at how we allocate existing dollars allows for an additional $340,000 in operating expenses for the public schools in Madison County. That includes an additional allocation to current expense for the public schools of $63,000 for a total allocation of $2,631,120. Current expense offset is most of any local school system's funding comes from the state. And then each local government puts in funds to supplement that. So that funding can be used mostly for facilities, operations, utilities. It can be used for salaries. It can be used for transportation. But we're increasing that amount slightly. That should cover the estimated cost of the school resource officer and cleaning services at the new early college. Also, a portion of our current expense funding will continue to cover a instructional coach for the Golden Leaf one-to-one laptop initiative at the middle school and a half-time mechatronics instructor at Madison High. This also includes a $10,000 increase for the birth to kindergarten program expenses that's run by the school system for a total allocation of $102,000. The additional funding combined increases over the last 3 or 4 years, our current expense funding by $404,000. That's an 18% increase. That's the largest area of increase in our budget has been the public schools' current expense. The local appropriation per pupil based on the school system's estimated enrollment of 2,277 students for next school year is estimated to be $1,217 per full-time equivalent, or roughly per student. As a result of us steadily increasing those funds, as well as unfortunately some enrollment decline due to population shifts and other factors in the school system, that's increased our per pupil expenditure by $343 over the past 5 years. That's a 39% increase. And then finally, $885,000 in 4042 sales tax funds, which are county funds, county sales tax funds that come to us that are restricted for public school construction and certain equipment and technology needs. Of that $885,000, 430 of it will go toward paying the debt qualified school construction bond, which includes the early college and renovations at the other schools in the county, as well as the addition at Brush Creek. $100,000 as requested is for general school system maintenance, small project capital outlay needs that they have. And $355,000 is to cover what has been used by the school system to pay back the energy savings loan they entered into several years ago. They had been paying that loan from operating expenses. By using 4042 funds, will free up that amount of money that they can use for salaries, positions, anything that they deem appropriate. Social services, as we discussed, is several increases, including some state funding. That's up $457,000 overall. But there's a net reduction in county funds of just about $7,000. DSS administration, which covers salaries and other expenses, that includes the funds that we put in for the cost of living adjustment for employees. Foster care payments, which we cover 50% of, that's increased by $407,000 in expenses, $203,500 in revenues to cover half of that. That's due to simple increase in foster care cases and placements that go through DSS. Child care subsidy vouchers entirely paid by the state. Revenues and expenses increased by $29,000, which is a small amount. Regarding employees and salaries and benefits, this budget includes a $156,000 increase in employee health insurance costs. That includes general fund and landfill fund. That represents an additional $710 per full-time employee contribution from the county. That brings our total contribution from the county for a full-time employee to $8,522 a year. Some cost savings realized there with changing deductibles I talked about earlier will save us about $48,000 between the two. That increases the county's deductible per employee from $45,000 to $55,000. It increases each employee's deductible from $300 to $700 effective January 1st. And again, important to note, employees will pay no premium. There's no monthly premium from them to cover this insurance, which is very rare among most employers. $132,000 is included in the budget for a $500 per full-time employee cost of living adjustment. Part-time employees will receive a prorated portion, so if you work half-time, you receive $250. Also includes funds for additional merit raises to address pay scale inequities. $8,000 for additional employee training funds that will be under human resources for use throughout the county so that we can provide our own employees with the opportunities that they request and need to grow in their position. $30,000 included in the sheriff's budget to address accrued comp time there. The sheriff has worked on reducing that and has made some progress over the last several years. This additional funding will allow us to keep up with that. It's hard in a public safety position when someone's absent. You've got to cover them. You've got to cover the positions, what I understand frequently the case. So whoever's covering is accruing more time, and we need to reduce that liability. And this will be a step toward that. Other small changes, $55,000 in the tax budget for implementation, annual fees for the new tax software, $50,000 of that's annual license and maintenance fees, $5,000 will cover upfront computer purchases. Board of Elections budget increases, kind of increases and decreases every other year. We got an additional election to cover potentially next year. So there's a $19,000 increase there. Nonprofit funding, a total of $67,000. Everything has stayed the same there to community clubs and nonprofits, with the exception of a $5,000 increase from $15,000 to $20,000 for my sister's place, and an increase of $1,200 from $3,000 to $4,200 for the Community Housing Coalition. Finally, the landfill fund is the enterprise fund that operates completely independently. Tax revenues do not go there, but our collection fee, which is the same as tax, it's just collected in a different format, is what finances most of that. This maintains the $160 collection fee per household that you all reduced from $180 2 years ago. Proposed budget for the landfill is $2,039,857. $143,000 is appropriated from landfill reserves to cover equipment replacement needs. There are sufficient funds in their reserves to do that, and that's funding we just haven't spent from this year. So if we spend some from this year, we'll reduce that for next year. Maintains $37 per ton construction demolition debris and tipping fee for haulers, and funds. We have to fund the cost of living adjustment through the landfill fund, and additional health insurance expenses, and then we have a $30,000 contingency line in the landfill fund. And then the fire tax, you have with you a list of the fire tax rates for each department, service territory in Madison County. Everything is at the same rate as the budget is presented. There is a proposal from the Spring Creek Fire Department for a 2-cent increase, which you all can consider. You vote the increase, it's easy to increase paperwork wise. I just left it as is. It's what's presented because that's up to you all. Hope to answer your questions or what comments.
Forrest, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you and your staff for all the hard work.
Thank you, Forrest.
Now is the opportunity for the citizens who signed up to provide input in the proposed 2017-2018 budget. I will call your name, and I need to remind each speaker that there is a 3-minute time limit. I believe we have 2 individuals who signed up. Sue Keener.
Thank you very much.
This is on behalf of the Spring Creek Fire Tax, the citizens of Spring Creek, and the people there. There's approximately 301 households in that community over there. And I have about 175 signatures on this petition. We went around and got up a new one, and more people has backed to sign it than ever. The people have a hard time paying their taxes. They may have land and stuff like that, but we have no crops to foresee it anymore. So I'm asking you all to turn this tax down because we can't afford it. And the Spring Creek Fire Department, they never involved the community in anything. Used to, we got a newsletter every 3 months telling what was going on in the fire department. The chief would have his paragraph that things, their places they've been. And I and the people of Spring Creek does not see a raise to qualify them for a raise because there is wasteful spending. And I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keener.
Thank you, Ms. Keener.
Theodore?
Thank you. It wasn't that long ago when we had one of these meetings when there was almost nobody here. This is a delightful thing to see, and I'm glad that people are turning out for it. A quick peruse of this, and I want to congratulate everybody who was involved. This looks like a very tight budget. It looks like a good budget. I hope that there is some control over some of the money that's going to the schools, particularly arts materials that have been lacking in some years in the past. And also, I'd like to point out that I have an idea that I've run through a person who I think is probably the most knowledgeable landfill person in Madison County, and that's Ms. Cutjaw. I ran through an idea past her very briefly, and she said it would probably work. I believe it would raise a few more dollars than you're raising now, but it would be equitable for all the people rather than this. I'm paying the same as somebody who has 5 children. It just doesn't seem fair. So in some time in the future, I would like to present that to the commissioners as an option so that you can look at it and consider it. And ask Ms. Cutjaw if she thinks that it's still a great idea. She really knows that business. Thank you for your time. You guys have done a wonderful job on this budget. We appreciate you. Thank you. Good
Thank you,
evening.
Pete.
Thank you, Pete.
All right, that concludes the public comment. All right. Board members' questions and discussion regarding the budget. Gentlemen?
Well, I'd like to ask some of the Spring Creek residents here a question, if I could. And my question is based on information that I need to make my decision on the request for the tax increase. Was there a public meeting with the fire department and any of the citizens in Spring Creek?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir, we were never informed.
They
of no
changed
meeting.
they changed the, where they elect the board members. They changed that meeting this year, and it's been that way ever since the fire department. It was in May. That was changed until August after the budget hearing.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments or observations? Well, the chair would like to comment. I want to thank all of the departments in the county, all of our employees, particularly those who work so hard, Forrest and his staff, to not only manage the county well, which has put us in a much better financial position than we were a couple of years ago, but to also my fellow commissioners and to the process that we have engaged in the last couple of years. And I just sort of like to remind folks, now Paul's sitting back there, he diligently comes to all of our work sessions and they are open to the public. Very few people do. But we have spent a lot of time working on managing the county's business and on preparing the budget and living within our means. Now that's tough. Every one of us in this room have got a lot of things on our mind we'd love to do if we had the resources to do it. But we first have to be prudent managers of the county's resources. And I want to compliment everyone that has worked on that under Forrest's leadership. I give him a great deal of credit for his leadership with us as commissioners. And I also want to thank my fellow commissioners. I think this is an excellent document. It has been thought out very carefully. And if there's not any other discussion,
I have.
please, guys, please. Go
I'd
ahead.
like to make one comment.
Please.
Public. If you look at our local Asheville paper, you realize that there's surrounding counties that raise the tax rate in order to balance their budget. That was one way that a lot of counties do that, because not that I'm speaking for them, that it was their reason for that, but it's a quick and easy way to generate revenue so you can balance your budget. And we sit here and we think about each and every citizen here in the county and what it does to them to raise their taxes and the effect it has on them, on fixed income and low wages. And just like Ms. Keener said, no crops. You have a big farm, you don't want to lose it. Therefore, you want to keep it in your family, but you're not generating any revenue. So it gives me great pride to sit here and say we didn't increase tax rate. And that's something that when I ran the first time, I was opposed to. I will be opposed to it for as long as I sit here. The Forrest, everyone has done an excellent job getting the budget to where it is. I've been on the board one term and starting on my second, I see just from the time I've been here that we're in better shape today than we were 5 years ago. And that's something that I think that the citizens should be proud of, the employees should be proud of. We didn't raise their insurance costs. They don't have to pay any premium, and that's unheard of. Most counties pay something. You pay something, whether a little bit out of your check every pay period or whatever. And these things we take personally, because we're sitting here representing every single citizen in the county. And before we raise our hand, that's what we think of. Is it best for the citizens of the county? And I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Come back for one of our regular meetings. You'll learn a lot. You can serve on a board. We have board vacancies. Thank you.
Especially the nursing home board.
Yes.
We need volunteers for the nursing home board. Every month, we need volunteers for the nursing home board.
Yes.
Somebody, please, help us out.
I would just like to say that having been on this board for 2.5 years, a lot of people in the county look at this as it's a political deal. It is far from a political deal. It might be a political deal for about 5 minutes if you're serious about what you do. But if you come on this board, if you're fortunate enough to get elected to this board, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners, each and every one of them, for the work that we have all put into this budget with Forrest's leadership and the staff at the finance office. Forrest, thank you so much for what you do every day. And also the staff, the department managers. I kind of look at the county, and I've said this before, some may have heard it, some may not, like it's a business. At the top of that, we have the stockholders, and the stockholders are you people out here, okay? And y'all, through an election, appoint a board of directors. That's us. We go out and we hire a CEO or a county manager. And then that county manager is responsible for making it happen with the department managers. You got good department managers, things run very well in that department. You got department managers that aren't so good, the department don't operate quite so good. That's our challenge. It's no different than farming, no different than raising a garden, putting up hay, or anything else you do. Riding horses, any of that stuff. I've done everything that I just said. I grew up on a farm in the Laurel community. But I'm very thankful for the efficiencies that I have seen that through Forrest's leadership and the board's support, that we've been able to save some money. We've been able to create some additional funding. And every time we save money, that keeps that tax rate at 52 cents. And we understand people can't afford to have their taxes increased. And I would agree with Commissioner Brigman. I would not be for a tax increase. I want to do everything possible to keep the tax rate where it's at tonight. Actually, the net effect it's been a tax decrease. It wasn't much. It's $20, but $20 is $20. That'll buy a half a tank of gas in my car. That will get me to work 2 days. So, but we really try to, a lot of people think, well, there's 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and y'all are at each other's throat. It's not that way at all. When we're working, we are trying to do what's in the best interest of the citizens of this county. Because if you're doing the right thing don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. It don't matter. It does not matter. And I just want to tell y'all that I appreciate serving y'all and look forward to continuing to work for you. And this again, we don't just come down here and put on our pretty clothes and meet once a month. We have this year, through again Forrest's support and the board, we have work sessions. 2 weeks from tonight, we'll have a work session, and then we have 12 meetings. We'll have 12 work sessions or more. I don't know how many times, Forrest, we've met in the last 2 months with we're also the members of the Board of Equalization and Review for folks who want to come in and appeal their taxes. So we serve on that board also. So we appreciate the crowd coming out. We have the streaming, which is a great thing. If you happen to miss a meeting, you can go back and watch it and figure out. Sometimes I go back and I can't remember exactly what I said. So I'll go back and I can review that, and it's pretty dang good. We've not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but we've come a long way in Madison County, but we still got a long way to go. And as long as I'm on this board, we're going to be reaching forward, trying to improve and do what is the right thing for Madison County. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to say that we do the best we can with what we've got. We're close to Lincoln County. We spend a lot of really there. A lot of people work there. And Forrest has done a great job in his budget and his staff. And I appreciate what he's done. I really do. And I think it's a good budget. He tries to save money every way he can, and he has. And as the minutes reflected here, that's 3 times we met this month. So, and we had 3 equalization board meetings, as he's explained. So, we are trying to work, and we don't do it for the money. I do it for free, but we're not into it for the money, of course. But I'd just like to say thank you to all the staff for what a good job they've done on the budget. I appreciate you coming tonight. This is a good group. I mean, number-wise, we don't usually have a large group, but this is a good group tonight. Thank you for coming.
Well, I don't know what else really I can say that hasn't already been said. I echo my colleagues' statements. I thank Forrest and all of our staff for the work that they've put into the budget. I know how much time we put into it. I can't even fathom a guess how much time Forrest and the staff puts in cumulatively. It is a lot of work to try and balance a budget just our size. I went to a Buncombe County commissioners meeting, I guess, I don't know, probably close to a year ago or so now. And they throw $100,000 bills around the way we throw $100 bills around in Madison County. And to see what they spend their money on down there, and I'm not saying that it's all frivolous, but what they spend their money on, of course, they have a much larger tax base. But to see what they spend their money on blew my mind. And in Madison County, we do the best we can with what we've got. Madison County people have a tradition of making a lot out of a little, and we try to honor that tradition too. I've had the privilege of serving on this board nearly 2 years now, and when I ran for election, and not to make it political, I had always argued we don't have Republican problems and we don't have Democrat problems. We got Madison County problems, and that's what we need to find solutions for. And not to say that everything we have is a problem either. We've got a lot of good things that go on in this county. We've got some strong departments. Our library is a shining example of that. Our animal shelter is doing a great job. We're really making strides on economic development, trying to bring some projects here that will create some jobs for our people, some good, long-lasting jobs for our people. All that stuff is going on behind the scenes on any given day. And we just sit up here one day a month and try to make a few folks understand what goes on. And we appreciate y'all coming out and appreciate your feedback, your comments, good and bad. I'm open to any feedback, whether it be positive or negative. We can take a positive even out of a negative sometimes. So I look forward to continuing on this board for a couple more years at least anyway. And I look forward to hopefully serving with the rest of my colleagues for that full period of time as well. And I want to just thank everybody for coming out, and thanks for your patience with us. And we're doing the best we can, but we're always open to suggestions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. All right, any other comments? Forrest?
Mr. Chairman, I hate to add anything, but I do want to commend our department heads. With the size of our county, they're all citizens of our county who are paying taxes, and whose family members are paying taxes. And a lot of the work happens throughout the year. When there's a vacancy, almost always the department head first looks at how they can combine and do more with that. That's something you don't have in a bigger organization because they don't see the benefit of it. So that's a real gift that we have here, and I want to commend them again for the work they do during budget prep and throughout. Because they're already Melanie's probably preparing for next year already. She's probably over there figuring out what she's going to do a year from now. And she shows good results.
Should be calling Duke Power again. Start that over.
All right. Well, at this time, the chair will move that we adopt the 2017-2018 Madison County Budget Ordinance. Second by Commissioner Brinkman. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. We have a unanimous budget. I want to thank everyone. Now I declare the public hearing for the fiscal year 2017-2018 Madison County budget closed. Thank you. All right. We will now move on with the agenda, and the next item on the agenda is Roy and the on-bill energy efficiency finance program.
I hope you all aren't tired of me yet. I think it's like my third or fifth presentation. I want to thank you again for having us and for working with us and being flexible with your prior agendas, both first for my absence and then for a couple of commissioners. It's great to be up in front of you again. And this is a sincere comment. Every time I come down here, I'm like, I wish I had the opportunity to move down to Marshall, because I love the folks who live here. But I also love everything y'all are doing. I've learned more about what you're doing in Madison County than just going on in Watauga. And now that you have a board opening on the nursing home board,
we need you, man. Come on down.
Matt, no, I've also realized you could probably save a few bucks by not not paying for your microphones. You're kind of like me, you don't really have to have one. Okay.
I think it's just for the internet folks.
Yeah, right.
Again, I can't scream out loud.
Is this the first recording of these meetings, or has it
Oh,
been
no, it's
before?
no.
So I go back to that last one where my voice was all breaking up and just. see
Yeah,
how
there
bad
are
it was.
times, so you can go back.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that won't happen again. Congratulations on the budget. My past job, I was a budget wonk, and I really can appreciate how detailed and hard of a thing it is. And I've never had to put one together myself, so just want to commend you all for that. And also just mention that my colleague Lauren Essick, who is our North Carolina Energy Savings Outreach Coordinator, is here with me tonight. And if any of you folks are new to the concept that we're talking about this evening, and that they'll be voting on, please do get in touch with her. It's a program that it sounds like would be good for you and that you would participate in. We would love to hear from you. And it is called On-Bill Energy Efficiency Financing. I'm not going to go into a detailed presentation because I've already done that. But as you all know, it is a way to provide needed debt-free financing primarily for low-income, low to moderate income homes, and also for rental properties. It's a way that the utility would help finance the needed energy efficiency improvements in their home, which not only improves quality of life and comfort, number one, but also can lead to a reduction in their energy bills. And it's a program that's being really successful. Just more and more, every time I talk to you, there's new co-op that's in the process of developing one of these programs, and we get new reports of how other programs are impacting the folks that they're helping, and it's just, there's never a bad thing. So, and I've talked about a lot of data, but since we last talked, we released a report that I shared with Forrest and a couple of the commissioners that provides a more detailed analysis of the level of need by county and across French Broad electric service area, number of homes that are living in poverty, how much they're spending of their income each year on energy costs. And in that report, we report on the fact that there's 1,200 to 1,500 homes in Madison County alone that live below the poverty level, spending up to 40% of their income for the poorest households. And even for the ones that are up to 150% of the poverty level, they're still spending an average of 10 to 11%. And by comparison, what's deemed affordable by the people who do these calculations is 6%. So for folks who can qualify for federal assistance for weatherization and low income, just bill payment assistance, they're paying double what is deemed affordable. But only 5 of those folks in Madison County each year and that's up to 25 homes. So only 5 of those 2,500 are able to get even full weatherization assistance to do the types of improvements that we're talking about through this on-bill financing program each year in Madison County. So it's barely touching that need. So that's my last pitch, data-related pitch. And just 2 other quick updates since the last time I presented to you. We've had Yancey, Mitchell, and Buncombe County now have all passed resolutions. That's obviously not any attempt to pressure you, but just to show you that the other 3 North Carolina counties served by French Broad EMC have also adopted these resolutions. And then finally, there's a new federal program from Congress that would make this program more effective if French Broad were to implement an inclusive tariff-based on-bill financing program. It's a rural utility service 0% loan guarantee program that it's on a reimbursement basis that French Broad can tap into to pay and keep interest rates low through this program to make it even more effective for the folks who would participate. So with that, just one reminder that it's a voluntary program. It's paid for by the people who participate, not by anybody else. And this resolution before you is non-binding. And my final comment is that we see widespread community support. You heard from Eric and Elaine today. There's so many others that Lauren's been connecting with over time, and prior to her, Eliza. And so we hope you will also support it tonight. With that, I'll just open it up to questions and or a vote.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the 6th paragraph in the resolution down here, it talks about, it says credit score or whether they own the property, they occupy, the option to finance needed home energy improvements, quote, debt-free, unquote. All right. The option to finance debt, can you explain that?
Yeah, so obviously when the program is in one sense, a debt instrument. You have to pay, participants have to pay the utility back. The point on that is that they're paying through 80% of the savings. So if they are going to save $100 a month on their utility bills, they get to pocket 20, 80%, $80 goes back to French Broad to pay French Broad back. So it's not like they're taking on actual new debt in the sense that they're now more burdened financially than before. And the other part about why it's a quotation is that the investment is, and therefore the cost recovery is tied to the property and not the person. That's the tariff portion of the aspect of the program. So if they move out, that cost recovery, that repayment stays with the property and not the person. They're not carrying debt with it. So in that sense, it's not like traditional loans. We just kind of qualify that.
And so the person with the property is responsible for the payment if the renter were to leave.
So there you're getting into a question of liability and loss reserves. So if it's the property owner, they are not responsible for paying unless it's the property owner that takes on the investment on behalf of their renters and thereby reduces rent. So just to clear, you have two situations with rental properties. One where the renter pays their utility bill, one where the landlord does. In the case of where the landlord pays the utility bill and just rolls that into the rent, if they were to take on this investment, yes, they have to keep paying it off because they're the ones paying the electric bill. But they don't. Hopefully, they'll reduce rent for their tenants. In the case where the renter is paying rent, the renter is the one who's paying off that charge each month on their bill. Where they're paying the utility bills, they're paying off that charge, but they're also benefiting from a lower energy bill and a more comfortable home or apartment that they live in. If they move out, the next renter to come in continues benefiting and also paying. Does that make sense? If that property goes vacant, there is typically a loss reserve set up so that it's not up to the property owner, the landlord, because they're not the ones that signed up for the program. They just agreed that it can happen. If that property goes vacant or burns down, if it goes vacant for 24 months typically with these programs, then the utility dips into the loss reserve. They call that in default, and the utility dips into the loss reserve, which is what all other lenders do this on their own, and then they pay for it. It's not the landlord that ends up paying off any remaining principal in that situation.
So basically, it falls to the people that do pay their utility bill. Is that correct?
No.
No.
Well, it depends. So if the utility
yes
chooses,
or no?
There's not. It's not a clear answer.
Okay.
So if the utility chooses to use member capital to finance the program and to develop that loss reserve, then yes. No other utility has done it. What they'll do is roll either a modest fee or a percent of the interest into the cost of each retrofit, and that will capitalize the loss reserve, so it's new money. Or they use a portion, they're allowed to use a portion of the federal loan guarantee programs to help capitalize the loss reserve as long as they pay it off over time. The other thing we're working on as part of our statewide working group is the development of a statewide loss reserve using DOE state energy program funds that are already in the state energy office to develop a statewide loss reserve. And there's interest from the state co-op association and the state energy office on that initiative right now. It's not in place, but that will hopefully be in place to allow all rural utilities to have a loss reserve to secure against any losses from offering this program.
It being a co-op, that concerns me. That French Broad is a co-op, and somewhere somebody's got to pay for this.
Right. The intent is for the people who participate to pay for it. So the co-op will go find a source of capital. And I can tell you different examples. In Eastern Kentucky, the initial program was capitalized by a low-interest $1 million loan. They completely paid off. They're now capitalizing their program using federal capital through the USDA. Roanoke Electric, Eastern North Carolina, 3% loan from USDA's Energy Efficiency and Conservation Loan Program. And again, it's not like they get the money, and if the program doesn't succeed, then they're down $6 million. It's a reimbursement basis. So whatever they spend, they get reimbursed. In Arkansas, they also got a 3% loan through the same program. In Kansas, they have a 3% loan from a national co-op owned financing corporation. So, I mean, so it's really, the money goes into the people who participate and is paid, therefore repaid by the people who participate or subsequent customers at each site that has received those improvements.
Well, I'm speaking for myself,
Mhm.
not the board. I, as a commissioner, see that if I vote for this, I'm voting for someone to pay for this somehow. Someone, whether it's a renter or the property owner or someone. Well, I, as a commissioner, don't think that I should be doing something that French Broad can do in-house or can do themselves instead of it falling to the board to where it comes back to us that we approve this or we sign the resolution to it, whereas the taxpayers somewhere will be liable in some form.
So there is, and I don't want to cut you off, but
That's fine.
okay. First of all, in sign, I'm gonna kind of do this in different orders. In signing the resolution, you're not. This is just an expression of support. It does not behold French Broad to, and you can read the language at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's as they see fit and as they see as beneficial for the co-op and its members. Ultimately, it's their decision if they go out and get a USDA loan to capitalize the program or whatnot. This isn't something that taxpayers have any liability relation to whatsoever.
But that's, you answered my question and you said, why would I vote for this resolution when really we have no control over it? French Broad Electric can do it.
Mm-hmm. It's an expression of support. I mean,
Why do they need the resolution from us?
Two reasons. First of all, they don't necessarily need the resolution, but the folks that you represent, again, going back to just using data, there are 2,500 Madison County residents who are paying anywhere between 10 and 40% of their income on energy bills. Those are folks who need this type of program. They don't have any other recourse to help alleviate that burden. And associated with that, their housing is likely extremely poor housing, and energy efficiency improvements are a significant way of improving the housing stock and quality of life for those folks. So it's not that you're representing French Broad members in signing the support. You are representing citizens of Madison County, which is like why that's the way we're approaching this. As a second portion, when I can tell you about a conversation I had with Sam Hutchins, which I think a lot of folks know. He's the member services manager up at French Broad. Last August, we had a phone call, and we were getting signatures of support from members, expressions of willingness to participate. People needed this. We had some letters of support from CHC and other community service agencies. And Sam said to me, well, like signatures on a piece of paper are great, but ultimately what is going to move us is expressions of support from local decision makers and also local stakeholders in the community. So that's kind of what we've been doing, and that's why we first started talking to you all. And there was another aspect, and I don't know if that answers your question, but it's something that shows that the communities that French Broad serves at least support the concept and recognize the benefits that such a program could bring for the folks who need it the most, for the local economy. In the report that I referenced earlier, we're talking with a modest program, equally proportioned dollars going to the counties based on how many French Broad members live in those counties. $8 million investment in the county over 10 years. So, yes, sir.
Have you made this proposal to the board of directors up at French Broad?
No, we were. In our experience, most electric cooperatives are highly protective of their board members. And when we started to engage board members at French Broad, we were just politely asked to just have conversations with management. So we respected that request and have not spoken directly to any board members about the program.
So tonight, you can't report on how they feel about this or how they plan to finance it, because I'm not only a commissioner, but I'm a member of that co-op. And if this thing loses money, at the end of the day, somebody's power bill is going up.
So all I can tell you is that just going back to the source of capital, right? It's great for a co-op to self-finance a smaller program that they're doing $200,000 or something a year. When we're talking about scaling up, that's where, like other co-ops, Roanoke Electric, the poorest co-op in the state, $6 million loan guarantee from USDA, it's doing great. Nobody's losing money. It's saving their customers over $200 a year, even after repaying the utility for that investment. Default rates across the board are less than 0.1% for co-op tariff-based on-bill financing programs. That's the data. So while that's a risk, it's not a huge risk, and that doesn't answer your question. But if you're taking that same line of thought, currently French Broad has, at last count I heard, financed over 1,000 mini split heat pumps, spent, I think it's over $700,000. A large portion of which is still out there, stranded capital, risk of losing money, 3% interest. I think they can finance it up to $4,000 or $5,000 roughly. The average investment for this type of program is $7,500 per home. So it's no different. It's the same thing, but it's open to a lot more folks, and it's even more secure because that cost recovery can transfer from renter to renter. Somebody's always paying. A loss reserve would be in place to help secure against those losses in the case of default. So, I mean, that's the best answer I get. But, yeah, it's a great question. Nobody wants any, like, we would not be promoting this program, A, if it cost people who weren't benefiting, or B, if there was any real risk based on the large majority of, like, to date, there are over 7,000 or 8,000 homes that have been financed in this manner, and 0.1% default rate. No program has said, this ain't working, we're losing money, we give up. They're still going. I mean, some are new. The Kentucky programs have been around for 7 years. Midwest Energy's Kansas program has been around for 9 years. At some point, if it was a bad deal, they would have dropped it, but they're not. And they're doing presentations on these because it's so successful. The National Rural Electric Cooperative Association has been promoting these federal programs. They were intricately involved in the writing of the Rural Energy Savings Program, the 0% financing through USDA. The CEO of Roanoke Electric, who is promoting this type of program and the success of his program around the nation, is about to be the president of the National Co-op Association. He is the largest proponent. And they're open with other co-ops. It's like, here's our experience. It doesn't work the same for everybody. There's resources in place. There is a cost effectiveness analysis available that other co-ops are doing through my consulting group. All these things, and there's experience, and so there's always the risk that something's going to fail, but this program has not failed. So it's done more benefit. And you were just talking, the last piece was you're talking about like costing people. It doesn't. It's the system is set up so that nothing will get financed that can't pay for itself through the savings while also still allowing people to pocket money. That's that $100, $80 example that I provided before. And if something's going wrong, everything is tweaked. Somebody goes in to say, okay, why are you paying more than you're saving over the last year? Did you put in a new hot tub? Is the equipment failing? If the equipment's failing, we'll replace it. I mean, there's all sorts of safeguards built into this model to make sure that it works. So
the way I see this is we're not trying, by supporting this resolution, if we choose to support it, we're not dictating to French Broad Electric what their program is going to be. We're just saying, hey, French Broad Electric, there's a segment of our community that seems to be able to benefit from this, and we would just like for you to consider it. And it allows French Broad Electric to craft the program the way they think it should be crafted. That's my take on reading the resolution. And with that being said, I'll make the motion that we support the resolution.
Bill, do you have any comment?
No, sir. Well, I could say one thing, I really shouldn't, but this is something that French Broad can do where we do anything or not. It's like a DSS hiring people, like sometimes they used to bring them to us to approve them, which they don't need to do. So this is the same difference with this resolution. They can do what they want to do without our approval. So that's where I stand on it.
I need to make a comment relative to what my feeling and consensus would be. If this is voted on tonight, it will not pass. And I think it needs more thought on the part of the commissioners. I think that it is a serious matter. And therefore, I would recommend that we take it under advisement pending a second. It's my personal opinion that if it is voted on, it will fail.
I've already technically put a motion
I know
on the
you
floor.
have, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
and
make,
that motion
make sure you
stands.
understood.
That motion stands.
All right.
Is there a second? The motion dies for lack of a second. Thank you, guys. It is a good idea, and it needs to continue to be promoted.
Would I be able to request to the commission that I mean, perhaps you could tell me what additional information might help provide clarity or deeper understanding of any of your concerns?
I gotta have a point on that. I want to know what French Broad Electric wants to do.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's putting us in a bad spot. And I understand what the resolution is. It's basically just saying, yeah, we think it's cool. Let's roll with it. You know, I understand that.
Yeah.
But, this is French Broad's deal. I mean, they're the ones that need to decide whether they want to do this and where they're going to get the capital, they're going to get a loan. And, most people's utility bill is high enough. I know mine is.
Yeah.
Especially right now. Air conditioner's sitting on 70 degrees at my house. It's nice and cool. Dollar bills are cha-ching.
I won't come stay at your house. My wife makes me large as 74.
I'm 73, man.
70. But, I want to know what French Broad thinks about it because it's really it's just their game. I don't think it's our game.
I'd agree with you. And if I could just speak to you as a French Broad member then, because as a co-op, the co-op is owned by the members. It's not, and they decide. So in that sense, like we're going to continue showing them that there is community support. I won't lie, I'm disappointed, but I definitely understand that's your decision and that is what it is. So if there's ever any future opportunity where I might be able to provide you more information, whether here or in person, please let me know.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Forrest has your information.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
gentlemen.
guys.
Thanks, Rory.
Mr. Donny Laws.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, you have a report for June in your package. It's consistent with the progress that we've been making on collecting taxes. You'll see a number of files being referred to my office. We have sales set for, I believe, June the 26th. Our collection for this month is consistent with what we've been collecting probably during this fiscal year. It puts us a little bit over our budget amount for the fiscal year. So we sort of have a pipeline that is moving along, and we're within our expectations for June. I appreciate Forrest's foresight in the budget that you voted on earlier, because as we are collecting these taxes, the potential pot that is there is going to be reduced. In fact, there's an account that has been on your last 12 months, approximately $26,000. That was a very large account that's collected that will be paid out in the coming months. So we're going to lose that good amount that we've been collecting every month. Hopefully we'll have something to replace it with. Our biggest account, the breakaway account that I've talked to you about, is on the court calendar for Madison County this month. We have a hearing set for Friday. So hopefully we'll be able to obtain an order to move forward with the sale of that. And what we're hoping is that the proceeds from that can be used toward our budgeted amount for the 2016-17 tax year. So we're moving along well. The new tax software, I hope that they will be put into place and working in the very near future, will assist the tax office and increase the current year's tax collection. But I believe this report is a reflection of where we've been and hopefully where we're going. If you've got any questions about specific account or status of any of those listings, attached to that sheet, you have our spreadsheet of where we've probably been for the last 5 or 6 years and all the cases that are there, the ones that are paid out, the ones that are pending, and the status of each one of those.
Mr. Laws, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Page 3, account 2117, about a third of the way down. It's a large account, $107,000. And also on page 6, account number 21485, another large account, about $95,000.
There's the River Club and
French Broad Investors, ROTS, and River Club Investors. And the comment is foreclosure not filed, partial payments.
Right.
So, and I went back to the front and I didn't see where they had, will that show on next month's?
No, what happened with those two accounts, those are large developments.
Right.
Okay. And those tracts have been subdivided, re-subdivided. There are a lot of inconsistencies within the tax records and the tax assessments. And I've spoken with Rory about this, and we've looked at those. My opinion is what we've assessed for taxes, there are several double billings within those. When it says payments made, we have collected in the past, I believe it's probably in the past 12 months, I'll go back and look at what substantial payments came in on both of those accounts. They were much higher than what, they've been paid down from what is on the sheets that you're looking at. Those sheets reflect what the original account balance was when it was referred to me.
Okay.
The present account balance is less than that because payments have been made on those accounts on what we know is properly taxed. So before we can proceed with the filing of the lawsuits, there's a lot of work that I've got to do to verify that those listings are appropriate. And then once I do that, we're going to present that to the taxpayer and give them the opportunity to pay the balance on that. That's a very good question, looking at that sheet. I could not put all of that information in that little line that's out from me.
Thank you.
Yes,
Second. Other questions or comments? Mr. Laws? I want to thank you again, your staff, our tax staff, doing an excellent job. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your continued support in making it much easier for us to proceed with these lawsuits and collect these taxes.
What's the collection percentage in Yancey County?
Our collection in Yancey County for this we had our budget was approved last night, and I want to think that we are at 96.52. Now that's projected what we're going to have for this year, which 4 or 5 years ago, we were at 96 and you were at 90.
Right.
So we've gone up 0.5% and you've gone up almost 6%. So, and I think with the continued collection of these taxes and folks knowing that we are gonna go after folks that haven't paid their taxes and the new software, I see the trend continuing. I mean, you've made good progress it's going to be slower, but I would think within the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to be equivalent to your peer counties.
That's what we should do.
And that's where you should.
That's where we should be.
Be better.
And you may be. Depends on how good this new tax software is. But there are a lot of bugs. It's not an easy process. When you're at 90% for 1 year, there's double listings. There's mobile homes that don't exist, you know. So as we're getting down to some of the more difficult properties that are going to be to proceed against. And that's the reason I appreciate Forrest and you folks moving the needle down. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to look and see what you've got right there and just try to meet that goal. Because it's very nice to exceed that goal and have a budget surplus for that year. That's what you're after. You know, the worst thing is to not meet your goal. The second thing is, you did what we expected out of you. The third thing, if you exceed that goal, then that's where you want to be. So that's what we're going to continue to do.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or observations? All right. Ms. Brooke.
I'm here to talk about 2 things. First is the alcohol and drug-free workplace policy that we've kind of been talking about for several months. And so tonight I'd like to present it and ask for your approval. So what we've currently got is a policy that does pre-employment and the DOT definition of safety sensitive and reasonable suspicion. And that's pretty standard. And so the DOT definition of safety sensitive positions is anyone who has a CDL but actually has to use it to perform their job duties. So what we're looking at moving towards is we're kind of following and leading trends in the state, as there's a few other counties that are kind of broadening their alcohol and drug-free workplace policies, and we're working along with them and setting an example. And so this will continue our pre-employment, and that'll continue to be done at the health department. But what we did was add a time limit to it of 72 hours. Now, if you're an out-of-town hire, that could maybe pose some problems. But what we can do is work with a company that doesn't charge anything except for if we use them, where I just enter it online and it sends them to whatever facility is in their town. And it still applies the same 72-hour limit, so it's an across-the-board policy. It looks at adding post-accident testing, which is really good for our workers' comp insurance. They really have been asking us about this for several years. So there's a couple of different kinds of accidents that one could find themselves in. One is when you're driving a vehicle and you wreck it. And so we had to meet a few different standards when you're looking at post-accident testing for that kind of accident. And so what we've done is we've looked at all the different standards, and we said, if you did an estimated $500 worth of damage, and that's our deductible, that's how we came up with that number. We didn't just pull it out of thin air. Which I've been reminding employees as I've been meeting with them is not difficult to do in 2017. It just be backing into a hole. You could, and there's a procedure that you would follow. You would call your supervisor and they would notify me, and you would be taken and treated medically and given a drug test. The other kind of accident would be injury to your person, and we're not talking about a paper cut. If you paper cut yourself, we're gonna be like, all right, good luck in there. It would be anything that requires medical treatment away from the scene of the accident. So anything, a good working definition is beyond first aid. If a first aid kit can't fix it, and you need to be taken to a medical facility for treatment, you would be subject to treatment. You would first receive your medical treatment because we want to bandage whatever's going on, and then have a drug test. So that's the post-accident. It also increases the definition of health and safety sensitive positions that are required to be randomly tested. And so what we've done is worked with department heads to look at these definitions, and we've looked at other counties' policies. We've looked at state definitions, and we've come up with a list that you all have. So nurses, some lab technicians, social workers, animal shelter workers, anyone who drives, like if you have to drive our county vehicles to complete your task. And then also the 911 folks, they have literally all of our lives in their hands at all times. So those kinds of things. And then it also works with the Employee Assistance Network so that employees can use the services available to them that we've talked about also in the past couple of months, to help if they do feel like they have a substance abuse problem. And I actually chatted with them today, and if it's a DOT position, there's different requirements for DOT folks. They have to actually visit a DOT certified counselor, and the EAN works with a certified DOT counselor, and I got her name and contact information, and I passed it along to the department heads that have those positions as well. So we've really been working hard to meet with employees. Since April, I've met with almost every single county employee at least once, some more. I've left one department and I'm on their calendar for Thursday. But they're already subject in that department to the randoms, so it's not anything that would be new to them. And then I created some forms that are in the back part of it. So
I like how you HR people light up when you say you created a form.
No,
Everyone else groans and you guys light up.
No, I've talked about this with you before. This is my thing here. This is exciting. So to document, so part of it is that when we're talking about these random tests and we say you have 3 hours, so we this was a working number. So at first we said 2 hours. The folks that we work with, that we contract out, National Testing Association, because we don't control the randoms in Madison County. We contract with someone and they send me an email about who was picked. It's not in our offices at all. They attach time limits to it themselves, like you have 6 days, or you have 2 weeks, or I've seen some cases you have the whole quarter to go get tested. That doesn't really work for our policy. So at first we said you would have 2 hours, and then we thought, well, if you're all the way on one end of the county, and to meet the standard for random drug testing that we talked about before, where you have to, for randoms, it can't be our health department, it has to be at the nationally accredited laboratory, and the closest one is Sisters of Mercy on Patton Avenue in Asheville. 2 hours might not cut it if there's a traffic jam, or if there's just, anything. And so we split it, we added it to 3 hours. We talked about 4, we talked about a day, we landed on 3. This is just, a proposal. We've run it by department heads, And it doesn't mean 3 hours from the time I'm notified in my office. It means 3 hours from the time that the department head in person notifies the employee or via telephone, but you can't leave a voicemail. So if I'm notifying you, I would have to get in touch with you and talk to you, and then your clock starts. So that form on the back is for them to log all of that, and then they'll email it to me, and I will keep records of it. They'll have a record of it in their office, and I'll have a record of it in my office, so that we're all on the same page about times, because that is an important part of this process.
Can I comment on that?
Yes,
I don't think that 3 hours is unreasonable, but the only thing I would caution you on is, let's say, for example, and I think most people here realize that our highway patrol is stationed out of Yancey County, out of Burnsville. There is a sub office in Mars Hill, but they're actually stationed out of Burnsville. In my experience, and I deal with auto accidents on a professional basis every day. If we have somebody that has an accident in Spring Creek, and it just happens to be highway patrol shift change, it might be an hour and a half before that trooper even gets to Spring Creek.
Oh, there's no time limit on the post-accident.
I got you. Okay.
So the post-accident is just,
Okay.
once you're cleared up and everything, and then you go.
Very good. I just wanted to
Yeah.
put that up
So
for
the
consideration.
random is where we've got the time limits, and the pre-employment is the 72 hours.
My mistake. I misunderstood.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
And we've been, I emailed this to I met with all of our department heads, and then I emailed it to a smaller group of them, and we're like, really critique this, and like, let's really hash this out. And one of the questions I got was, well, what if people are on vacation? It says in here from their shift. So like, if I'm notified, if I get an email at 5:30, I'm already gone for the day. I can't notify the department head and the employee anyway until the next morning. So it would be at the beginning of their shift when they're notified.
Okay. Other questions? Brooke, I want to thank you and again, Forrest, for working through us on this. This has been a goal for a long time now. Mr. Attorney.
Yes.
Talk to me what you like.
There are two issues that I would like to address. Number one, there are employees on here that are Board of Health employees and DSS employees, which I've not looked at the end of it. That's going to require
their board approval.
Their board approval. So if there could be a provision added to the end of it that regarding those listed employees that whether they're going to participate in this is subject to their actual board approval of this policy.
Okay.
And the DSS board we have approved it.
Okay.
Okay, great.
And second, we do have job descriptions that are not now created for each and every one of these listed positions. That's going to identify within the job descriptions the safety sensitive areas in the driving.
At least rough ones.
Matt, has that been addressed?
And I also, per our other conversation, I also put in the very back of this, a thing that we would need that every employee will need to sign, saying that they've received this. So I've already met with all the employees, less one of the department. And then I'm gonna be going back out again to go over what the final policy that is approved actually looks like. Cause it has been through several revisions in my office. Fielding any and all questions, and then having everyone sign and give me this form back to put in their personnel file.
Okay, that's good. So, Donny, you're part of whatever motion would be that we
just to add a provision in it that makes this to the Board of Health and DSS boards that their participation in this is subject to approval, and Clayton has told us
we
he's on
have
the
on
DSS board
we did
that's
that
been
last week.
approved, and then the Board of Health will need to approve it regarding their employees. I'm assuming it's the practical nurse, the public health nurse, and those folks that are in that.
I met with all of
Okay.
their department heads. I met with Tammy and Connie.
Thank you.
Any other comments, or questions, or observations?
I'd just like to commend Brooke for her work on this over 4 or 5 months and responding to y'all's questions and concerns, the attorney's questions and concerns, department heads, employees, my questions and concerns, my obsessions, things like that. She's done a very good job on this.
Yes. All right.
Good job.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve this alcohol and drug-free workplace policy with the provisions that our attorney stated.
Motion by Commissioner Bregman.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rice. Any further discussion? All those of approving the motion to approve this policy with provisions stated by our attorney, let it be known by raising your right hand. Thank you again, Brooke. Item 2.
Okay, so the second thing you've got in front of you is something that's in front of you every year. It's the state salary plan for DSS and the health department. This basically just says, so the general statute 126-9B basically says that if we don't follow the state salary plan for those 2 departments, that we will create our own, and then you all will adopt it or approve it, and we will send it into the state Office of Human Resources every year. And so we do this every year. And what we do is we just go through the budget and the positions that were given to us by the health department and social services, and we plug it into a spreadsheet that the state sent us. And this is where we're at. So.
Are there any questions or comments?
With this presentation, we're in compliance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so we just need to have you all approve it before July 1st, and then we submit it electronically to the state before July 14th. So we'll submit it, when you approve it, we'll submit it tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we,
Okay. We have 2 at the same time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bregman?
Oh, yeah, you got it.
I move that we approve the 2017-18 salary plan as stated.
Motion by Commissioner Bregman to approve as submitted. Second by Commissioner Rice. Any further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. All right, Brooke, thank you again.
Thank you.
This has been a goal for the drug alcohol policy to protect our employees and protect the county, as you know, for a significant period of time. And really, I'm like Forrest, thank you so much. Very professional, very well done. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Dad.
Thanks, Brooke.
Mr. Manager.
Again?
I'm paying you by the word tonight, are we?
It only took us 2 hours to get back here.
It's like Comey going to the hill. I'm just back.
First sessions today.
The financial report in the manager section, if you'll look, as of May 31st, we're 92% of the way through the fiscal year. Revenues were at 89.1%, which is below the 92%. But like I said during the budget presentation earlier, we have 3 more months of sales tax to come in. We expect that to be about $850,000. So we're doing really well on our revenues and should exceed. We should hit target for amended and exceed what was initially budgeted. Expenses were at 82%, which is excellent because we don't expect those to spike. All that will be in pretty much right around June 30th. And we're going to have pretty good business left over at the end of this year. The year-to-date gain as of May 31st was $1.7 million. Compare that to an $8,000 loss at the same point last year. Regarding some notes in revenues that are doing really well, your back taxes for 16-17, we budget $715,795 is collected, so that's an $80,000 over budget in revenues, which is very good. And in the current year's taxes for 2016, we've exceeded our initial budget by $105,000. So there we sit as prior to the next budget, which I'll give to you. The contingency amount at this point in the year from budget amendments over the last few months. We have $404,000 sitting in contingency. Any questions on the financial report?
Forrest, I would like to suggest that at our next, or sometime in the near future, the next 90 days, at a work session, that we work toward cleaning up our bank balances. I know we've talked about that a little bit, about what the balances truly are, restricted, unrestricted, and that kind of stuff. And maybe, I know our finance officer's not here tonight, but still on vacation, I guess. But if we could do that, I would appreciate it.
Okay. We can do
Y'all okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you okay with that?
We'll do that. Any other questions on that? The budget amendment number 11, which everyone should have a replacement version. We're holding off on some things. There are some expenses that are not in this budget amendment pertaining to year-end expenses that I would propose you all discuss at your June 27th special meeting, depending on that working for everyone. Not a lot, but a few things that we could do in there that and we'll have a better picture by then of what we're dealing with.
Almost absolutely, yeah.
So here's budget amendment number 11, increases the budgeted revenues for our prior year taxes, interest, late listing fees, and current year. All of those revenues coming in over timber receipts, coming in over budget. Some changes to revenue to expense lines, increases and decreases within different sections. Most of those are just to cover expenses that are going on. We are putting $5,000 in office supplies under governing body for laptops for the board. You all can take that out if you wish, but that's in there. That could wait till the 27th. I put that in before.
Nobody's in.
You have Sheriff's Department, a number of changes, $39,000 in increased revenues, 200 and a net expense increase of $230,000 to get to the end of the year. 70,000 of that is from an inmate medical issue, which is just mostly one issue. And that's one of those liabilities. And that's the point of, if we had our 100,000 in contingency right now, we would have spent it if this were October. That's why we got to get that money. And in the past, we only had 45. So that's good. It's not good, but it's good that we have the money to cover those things. Increase to cover salaries through the end of the year in the sheriff's budget. That budget has not included an allowance for people's accrued leave payouts when they leave. And when you have turnover in a department that size, that number builds up. Also, there's a comp time payout there. So hopefully by putting the money in next year's budget, and this also puts some money in there to address it at the end of this year, by putting that in, we'll reduce that every year. We'll have a lower amount coming from there. Health insurance, due to those vacancies, and when someone starts, they've got a probationary period where he's saving $30,000 on his health insurance. Inspections, some changes, zoning fees are up a little bit, $3,100, moving around some expense lines. Commerce Fellows Grant that was awarded last year, we just got the check, so the $25,000 check has come in, the expenses have already been accounted for. Medical examiner fees, the actuals are reduced $4,000. And then you see a grant at the animal shelter, additional fundraising at the animal shelter, some fee receipt increases at the animal shelter, a correction of previous error in a previous budget amendment for the health department, a correction on 4042 funds. There was $57,000 approval for technology that used to be funded through rural low-income schools funding. That was approved in January, but it was never accounted for in the budget. So this amends that. It's already been spent, so the expenses have shown, but the amended budget does not. FEMA funds, that project's over from 2013 flooding. Those expenses are just being taken out. Miscellaneous income countywide increasing to $28 surplus property proceeds up a little bit. Again, previous sale, but the amendment, the budget was not amended. Slight increase in interest earned. That's all the general fund, and then contingency under debt service. This would reduce from that $404,000. You'd have a net reduction of 83. You'd still have $320,000 in contingency. For the school projects listed, that's in a separate fund, capital project ordinance 4. The school construction program, this is requested by central office. The early college is over projection. So they're by $279,775. So they're increasing the early college and coming up with those funds by cutting from Brush Creek, Furniture, Hot Springs, Mars Hill, middle school, and the high school a little bit from each of those. 125,000 for furniture to make that balance. Are there any questions about the budget now?
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to approve budget amendment 11.
So moved.
Mr. Rice, second. Mr. Brickman. Any further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Budget amendment 11 is approved.
Next, you have your tax releases and refunds for the month of June. May. So one person, one.
And those are all based on, well, except for one.
Except for the very last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We only got one that is not related to the property collections. That's a significant improvement from the past.
That is.
Yeah. Well, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the property releases.
So moved.
By Commissioner Wechtel, second by Commissioner Rice. All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. So approved. Forrest?
Next, you have some surplus property. You have an offer you accepted on lot 34 at Hall Ridge. At a previous meeting, the upset bid period has expired. The advertised bid was for $3,600. You have the option tonight of accepting, final acceptance of that or rejection.
Any discussion? The chair will move that we accept the offer.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brigham. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Another surplus property update, due to an error on my part, the notice for the rock building was not run. The news record was sent me that it's being published and will run in that 10-day period. Will run through there. So there's no action to be taken on that at this time. We have item E, a resolution honoring Forrest Jarrett for contributions that he has made for an exhibit. It's really a recognition of Mr. Jarrett's contributions to the community overall, but the purpose is there is an event this weekend at the North Carolina Transportation Museum in Salisbury, and Mr. Jarrett was helpful in getting some equipment transported down there, and the plan is for former Representative Ray Rapp to present this resolution to Mr. Jarrett on Saturday, and I think it will also be on display down there.
Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I know Mr. Jarrett personally. He has done a lot for Madison County too,
Many of us do. Yeah.
down at our depot. Various functions and things, and helped a lot of people in the county.
I'll amen that.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Yes. I'll make
Motion
the
by
motion.
Commissioner Brigman,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Briggs. Any further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand.
For board appointments, I did have a few very short manager's update. Last month, I had talked to you all about a bill that Connie Harris has brought some of y'all's attention to on the Social Services Board, a bill that would have mandated the regionalization of departments of social services over the next 5 years. And one key, in addition to the service delivered and a lot of unanswered questions about that, you just adopted a salary plan. If you hadn't adopted, you have to meet the states. If they consolidated, we'd probably be meeting the states as well. It's significantly higher and significantly more expense. Due to those unknowns, the Social Services Directors Association and the Association of County Commissioners really went to bat with the sponsor of the bill, and a revised bill has been adopted that unanimous support, I think, in the Senate. I don't know if it's gone through the House yet. NCACC supports it, and the Directors Association now supports it. It removes the mandate for regionalization. Instead, like all things controversial, it turns it into a study. And they will look at that and figure out what they want to do. It's not mandated, it's not off the table, but at least if it comes back up, there should be more questions answered and moving a little more slowly. And the other parts of the bill, very good. They require, and I don't know how our county has complied, we may be doing this anyway, but they require social workers to do a direct visit with someone before placing a child in temporary custody, because there have been some problems in the county here and there where they just place someone too quickly, and there have been fatalities and other abusive situations where you had guardian ad litems and others who were saying, don't do that. So the bill requires them to take that step, which is a strong positive. That is really all that I have from that. We have your board appointments.
All right, it looks like we have 3 pending board appointments for this evening. Yeah, we have the AB Tech, and we have a vacancy on the library board, and it appears we have a recommendation from Melanie Morgan for replacement there. It's on the bottom block under board applications received, the very top individual. Okay. And then a letter attached to a notice from the Mars Hill Board Fire Commissioner replacement individual. That was brought us almost unfortunately by the passing of a member of that board. We'll need to do these independently. I will move that Commissioner Wayne Brigman be reappointed to the AB Tech Board of Trustees. This is a 4-year term. He's currently serving on the Board of Trustees at AB Tech.
I'll second that.
A second by Commissioner Rice. Any other comments or nominations for the AB Tech Board of Trustees? Nominations are closed. All those in favor of Commissioner Brigman being reappointed for 4 years, please raise your right hand. All right. Mr. James Thorson has been recommended by Melanie Morgan to fill the vacancy on the Library Board of Trustees. This is a 3-year appointment. I do not see anyone else with applications received and reviewed, plus we do have the formal recommendation by our library director.
Just for clarification, is Rebecca Morris, that does say library board by her name, is that the same board? Is that what she's referring to?
She sent in an application to our office independently, unsolicited. She has never actually contacted the library board of trustees.
All right.
Okay. All right.
You send those to those departments?
Yes, and this has been almost a year ago.
Okay. Oh, with that being said, I move that we approve Jim Thorson, or excuse me, James Thorson.
Yeah. Motion by Commissioner Wechtel, seconded by Commissioner Rice. Any further discussions or any additional nominees for that position? If not, we will call the vote. All those in favor of Mr. Thorson, please raise your right hand. Mr. Brooke, you wanted to do the one for Marcia?
Yes. Okay.
If there's no change, we ought to just do all these at one time.
No, those are later. This one's the only one we like
Oh,
now,
okay.
is the Marshall Fire
Yeah.
Department.
Oh, fire department.
And this, I'm gonna read this letter that has been sent to us by Marshall Fire Department. We lost one of the Fire Department Board of Commissioners there in Marshall, Mr. Danny Wallen, here recently. It says the recent passing of Danny Wallen has left the Marshall Fire Department with a vacancy on our Board of Fire Commissioners. Having spoken with the Fire Commissioner and the other two, Mr. Merle and Mr. Gibbs, our recommendations to fill the empty seat would be with his son, Mark Wallen. I think everybody on the board here is familiar with Mark. He has resided here in Madison County his whole life, went in the Petersburg section. If there's any more discussion, if none, I will make a motion that we replace Mark Wallen in the vacant position of Danny Wallen for the Board of Fire Commissioners for Marshall.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Brigman, second by Commissioner Briggs. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please let it be known by raising your right hand. All right, I think that takes care of our board appointments, correct, Forrest?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's right.
Thank you, Amanda. I know you've been working on this, and this system works much better. No, that's personnel.
Closed session.
Yeah, personnel. All right, being no other business appropriate, we will now enter under 143-318-11 into closed session for the matter of personnel.
So moved.
That's property.
Do we property as well, Forrest, or just personnel?
Property.
Property. Okay, thank you for amending. Personnel and property. I was reading from the agenda.
So moved as amended.
So move as amended, so
Second.
seconded. All those in favor, let me know by raising your right hand. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in closed session. We may be in 112 if the cake decorating is done. If not, we'll be in the room next door.
They got any cake?
Can we get samples?
I would think they were judging.